in Mesmoralia. Part 1, The Posters. The city of Mesmoralia existed in the fold between twilight and dawn, neither fully in one world nor another. Its streets were lined with a menagerie of varying posters, little admissions of a life lost to something beyond the grasp of death. That possessive lover. The most recent swarm of posters came after a rash of people had lost their souls, perhaps from moral harm, a holy qualm that tore the sutures between body and soul. Certain mortal deeds don't sit well with the place where souls come from. One read, "Lost soul, seeking my lost soul. Reward offered." How interesting, I pondered. How one could quantify the worth of their soul, let alone the price rewarded for being reunited with it. I stood before that poster on Merchant Street, where the gaslights flickered with a rhythm that suggested breathing. My name was Adeliza Moth, and I'd come to Mesmoralia 3 years ago for reasons I could no longer quite remember. That was how the city worked. It softened your memories like old photographs left in the sun, until you couldn't recall which side of the veil you'd started on. The poster was signed simply, Berkeley Lent, 47 Sorrow Lane. I knew Sorrow Lane. Everyone in Mesmoralia knew Sorrow Lane. It was where the soulless congregated, drawn together by some instinct even their hollowed bodies retained. Part 2, The Soulless. Berkeley Lent answered his door on the third knock. He looked ordinary enough, middle-aged, thin, wearing a shopkeeper's apron still dusted with flour. But his eyes gave him away. They were vacant in a way that had nothing to do with stupidity or dullness. They were windows to an empty room. "You've come about the poster," he said. "Not a question." "I'm curious," I admitted. "What's the reward?" "Whatever you want. I own a bakery. I have money saved. I have," he paused, searching for the word. "Had things I valued. I can't remember what they were now, but I'm told they're valuable." I stepped inside. The house was immaculate, but cold, like a stage set. No personal touches, no photographs. The soulless couldn't bear to look at images of who they'd been. "Tell me how you lost it," I said. Berkeley sat heavily in a chair that didn't match any of the others. "I killed a man, not in passion, not in self-defense, for money." He said it the way one might report the weather. "I was hired to put poison in his bread. He bought from my bakery every Sunday, trusted me, and your soul left. That night, I felt it go like a tooth pulled, but from somewhere deeper. I woke up hollow." He touched his chest. The weight of guilt should have crushed me, but there was nothing. No remorse, no horror, just absence. This was the peculiar mercy and curse of Mesmoralia. The city attracted those whose deeds had created a rupture, a moral wound so deep that the soul, disgusted or damaged beyond repair, simply departed. It left the body functional, breathing, going through motions. But the essential spark, the thing that made one human, had fled to wherever souls waited. "Why do you want it back?" I asked. "Without it, You don't feel the guilt. Precisely. Berkeley looked at me with those empty eyes. I want to feel it. I need to feel it. This numbness is a worse hell than any punishment. I committed evil, and I should carry that weight. Instead, I'm just here, existing. It's obscene. Part 3, the soul trade. I'd been in Mesmoralia long enough to know the soul trade. There were those who collected lost souls, kept them in bottles and boxes, in mirrors and music boxes. The souls themselves were desperate, untethered things, seeking the bodies they'd abandoned, but unable to return without help. The intermediaries, the soul brokers, they operated out of the underneath, the network of tunnels and forgotten basements that ran beneath Mesmoralia like veins beneath skin. I found Magdalene in her usual corner of the Drowning Pearl, a bar where the soulless and the soul brokers conducted their business. She was ancient, though her body looked 40. She'd been in Mesmoralia since before the city had a name. Adeliza Moth, she said, her voice like smoke. Still clinging to yours, I see. I ignored the jab. Berkeley lent Baker. Lost his soul to murder for hire. He wants it back. Magdalene lit a cigarette that smelled of myrrh. They all do, eventually. The guilt-sick ones especially. They think suffering will redeem them. Will it? How should I know? I'm not a priest, she exhaled. But I have his soul. Came to me 6 months ago, weeping and wailing. Wanted to go back, but he'd locked all his doors. He's ready now. Is he? Magdalene's eyes, she still had hers, somehow narrowed. Or does he just think he is? Souls can be returned, but the reunion, it's not gentle. All that delayed guilt, all that horror, it comes flooding back at once. Some people can't survive it. Their hearts stop. Their minds break. That's his risk to take. And what do you get out of this, little moth? Playing matchmaker for the damned. I didn't have a good answer. Perhaps I was hoping that if I reunited enough souls with their bodies, I'd remember why I'd come to Mesmoralia in the first place. Perhaps I was hoping my own soul, wherever it had gone, might find its way back. Part 4, the reunion. The ritual required 3 things: the willing body, the captured soul, and a threshold moment, a crack in time when the barriers were thin. We gathered at Berkeley's bakery at 3 a.m., the hour when Mesmoralia was most itself, when the city's true nature pressed close. Magdalene brought the soul in a crystal vial that pulsed with faint, miserable light. Berkeley stood in the center of his shop, surrounded by the bread he'd baked that day. Even soulless, his hands remembered the craft. Last chance, Magdalene said. Once I open this, there's no going back. Open it, Berkeley said. The vial's cork came free, with a sound like a gasp. The light poured out, and suddenly there were 2 Berkeley lents, one solid and empty, one luminous and anguished. The soul recognized its body and rushed toward it with the desperation of a drowning man reaching for air. The collision was violent. Berkeley screamed a sound of such pure agony that that even Magdalene flinched. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest, his face contorting through every shade of horror and regret. The weight of 6 months of accumulated guilt, all the remorse his soul had endured in exile, crashed into him at once. "I killed him," Berkeley sobbed. "I killed him, I killed him, I killed him." He wept for an hour. We let him. This was the price of reunion, to feel everything you'd been spared, all at once, without mercy. When he finally raised his head, his eyes were different. Still pained, still haunted, but full. Human again. "Thank you," he whispered. Part 5, What Stays? I collected my reward. A small bag of coins I didn't need, and walked back through Mesmoralia's winding streets. The posters were still there, new ones appearing even as I watched. Lost soul, answers to the name of grace, reward for return of soul, no questions asked. Soul missing, last seen leaving body, after incident on bridge. The city was full of them, these fractured people seeking their fractured selves. And Mesmoralia held them all in its strange twilight, neither condemning nor absolving, simply containing. I stopped at a mirror shop window and looked at my reflection. My eyes looked back, and I searched them for that telltale emptiness. Was I soulless? Had I come here already hollow, or had Mesmoralia taken mine slowly, bit by bit, until I couldn't remember having it? Still wondering, Adeliza. I turned. Magdalene had followed me. "Everyone in Mesmoralia is looking for something," she said. "The soulless want their souls. The souled want to escape. And then there's you can't remember what you're missing, can't leave until you find it." "What if I never left anything behind?" I asked. "What if I came here whole and just stayed?" Magdalene smiled sadly. "Then you're the worst off of all. The soulless can be healed, the lost can be found. But someone who chooses to remain in Mesmoralia, who makes it home," she touched my shoulder gently, "that's a different kind of loss, one that might not have a cure." She walked away, leaving me alone with my reflection. Above us, the sky began its slow shift from black to gray, not quite dawn, never quite dawn. Mesmoralia's eternal almost morning, where everything waited and nothing resolved. I thought of Berkeley Lent, reunited with his guilt and his humanity, learning to live with what he'd done. At least he knew his sin. At least he could name his wound. I couldn't remember mine, and that, perhaps, was Mesmoralia's truest curse, not the dramatic severing of body and soul, but the slow forgetting, the gentle erosion of self until you couldn't remember what you'd lost, only that you'd lost something. The posters fluttered in a wind that came from nowhere. More would appear tomorrow. They always did. What happens in Mesmoralia stays in Mesmoralia, not because of discretion or shame, but because once you were here long enough, you couldn't remember anywhere else. The city became your whole world, a beautiful, terrible purgatory of almosts and nearlies, where souls could be lost and found, but never quite from the mirror and walked deeper into the city's heart, past the posters and the gas lamps, past the soulless shuffling through their empty routines and the soul brokers counting their captured lights. Somewhere in this twilight city was the answer to what I'd lost. Or perhaps the answer was simpler, more terrible. I'd lost nothing. I'd simply found Mesmoralia, and it had found me. And in that mutual recognition, I'd forgotten there was anywhere else to be. The bakery behind me released the smell of fresh bread, Berkeley, already back at work, kneading his guilt into dough, baking his remorse into something that could feed others. At least he had a purpose now. I was still looking for mine.